The Razer DeathAdder Mini, in my book, is the worst mouse Razer has ever released. But the DeathAdder V3 could be one of the best mice Razer has ever released. So how about the new Razer DeathAdder V3 HyperSpeed? And let me give you a quick spoiler. No, it's not just a DeathAdder Mini. Thank goodness. Kicking it off with my hand dimensions here so you can understand some of the points I'm talking about as I move the ruler over so you can kind of see the dimensions right there. And if some of these detailed breakdowns of mice, which I do with all of my mice lately, help you out, please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. But now I want to go on and get some raw measurements. But first what I want to show up here is some of the comparisons of the original DeathAdder V3 to the new HyperSpeed that Razer is shown here. Some really useful information actually. I'm just going to slap it up on the screen. This is from Razer so you can see the differences. But of course I do still want to give you those raw measurements. We're going to pack it up to a lot of mice. So number one, the HyperSpeed, of course the V3 DeathAdder, the EC, the Pulsar X-Lite V3, the G Pro, even though it's not ergo, and then the new Viper V3. So we have a lot of shape comparisons here. This is going to take a while, so grab a snack, buckle up, and hopefully this helps you out. So anyways, let's get our caliper to 0. Let me see. Stretch it out. We're going to kick it off with the length here. So getting that raw length from the very front, as you can see. And then the width right by the buttons, I'm getting it over there. So you can see that width. Now let's get from the sensor to the buttons, which again is right at that midpoint. And you can see that height. Now I'm going to bring it back towards the back skate here, just so you can see where that hump drops off in the back. Now let's go on and get that width of that tail where it flares out right there. Then I'm going to bring that up to the front. We'll get that front flare out, which is very minimal, which is kind of why I have the G Pro and such out. So you're seeing those dimensions right there. Now that we saw those, let's bring it to the DeathAdder V3. Good night. Just get this in the hand. It feels so much bigger. So you can see the length right there. We'll go ahead and get that grip width right underneath the buttons. So this is, again, that core difference, again, from the DeathAdder HyperSpeed to the original V3 here. Looking at that height right there, not too much. We're looking at like 2 millimeters, give or take, difference on the height. We'll bring it back to the back bit. Still pretty similar. And now that flare out. Ooh, okay, this one is definitely wider here. I want to get it right on the peak of that flare out on the back end. Let me just make sure I got that balanced. So there is that flare out. And then up at the top, it kind of just flows right to it. So you can see the biggest difference, of course, is that height, but the biggest, of course, is going to be that length. Now, coming over to the EC3, EC2CW. I'm sorry, this one's a mouthful here. Looking at the length of this one, and I'm trying to get it past that USB-C port up on the top there, so it might be a little off. If we get on that USB-C port, again, you can see it's 1 millimeter. Kind of right there as well. Now let's go on and get that grip width by the buttons on this mouse here. All right, this one definitely has some more drastic grooves for sure. I can feel it, but you can see that grip width is pretty much the same. Coming back here to the tail flare. Pretty much the same right there. I think I forgot to get the hump. Let's get that hump right here and see what we're looking at. There is that hump. So you see it very similar, but I'm going to talk about that, how, talking similar there. Now let's go with the Pulsar X-Lite V3. This is the ES version, but again, all of the X-Lite V3s will be the same. There's our length. Here is our grip width right by the buttons. And then our rear flare out hump in the back there. And then let's bring it up to the front flare out. And then we'll get that sensor hump. I keep meaning to do this measurement second. Ooh, this one's hump is, let me try to get it right there. There we go. There is the hump on the X-Lite V3. Now, again, just for grins and giggles, even though this isn't an ergo mouse, I'll talk about why I have this in this comparison later on in the video. But let's get some of those measurements. You can see this one's a little bit longer. Grip width here, right by the buttons where I think our fingers would rest. Let me get that lined up. Then we'll go back on that rear flare out right there. As far as our sensor hump, right there, you can see it's a little bit lower. Did I get that front flare out? I'm not sure. There's that front flare out right there. And now coming over to the Razer Viper V3 Pro. This is a new one that just came out. There's our length. You can see it's a little bit longer, almost more or less like the original DeathAdder V3. I say original, but you know, the V3. There is our finger, our width, right where our fingers would be, up at the front flare, and then our back flare right on the tail end. That light keeps glaring. I apologize for that. And then over here on our sensor. So now that we saw the measurements of the new DeathAdder V3 HyperSpeed, and again stacked up to other mice, I'm going to do one of my favorite tests, the heat signature here, which again, I do this in all of my mice videos. So please, if any of this stuff helps you out, again, consider subscribing. But anyways, we're going to kick it off with the HyperSpeed. We'll definitely do the DeathAdder in EC. You know, I don't want to waste too much of your time, but I'm going to show you all of them. Okay, let me just get to that. So anyway, let's start with the new DeathAdder HyperSpeed. And showing you my grip, you can see it's like this. It is not in the back of my palm. It's almost a relaxed claw. You see it kind of wrapping right around there. My fingers, my thumb is right by the buttons there, but it's not sitting in the back of my palm. So I should have some heat transferred over to the mouse now. Let's go on and remove it and just take a look at that there. So you can see my palm and then it rolling up here onto the fingers. Let me pull it up and you can see a little bit better. So you can see it's kind of resting right on the upper part of my palm, not on that rear back hump. But what you can do is you can still pull this mouse into, again, a grip kind of like this, where it's still not in the back of your palm. My rear or the right side of my palm is kind of looping around right there. And I kind of feel it having to squish in a little bit more, which is not something I really like. Hence the reason I like a bigger ergo. But anyway, say if you were to try to palm this mouse, which if you got hands like me, which are medium to larger, I don't think you're really going to be palming this. You're going to do that relaxed claw like I just showed you. But if I release my hand from here, just take a look at it. You can see it goes into that back bit. Again, wraps on each side and then comes around to those buttons. So again, I would put this as small to medium as far as if you're looking for a palm, but if you got a medium to large like myself, it's definitely going to be a relaxed claw, and that's how it plays. And the nice thing is how it flares out over here to alleviate some of that pinky pain if you're kind of, again, just over there kind of gripping into the mouse. That's the good thing about this, a relaxed claw without that side pinky and side hand fatigue there. Let's get this other DeathAdder. This is the, again, V3 Pro, and get some heat signature transferred over to this. And wow, this one is just in the hand. Let me show you something here. So just looking at this to this, you can just see like it doesn't look like much. You know, I kind of wish the camera would do it justice, but honestly, looking like this, you're like, they almost look similar, but holy smokes, hand to hand, putting them in, it's like, it's night and day. And how I showed you how you could palm the HyperSpeed, that's almost exactly how this one goes. But as you can see, it comes definitely further in the back of my palm. This little back bit that I told you can get a little bit of that fatigue on this side of your hand, it just rests right there. Again, it's a big ergo. This is what people love about big ergos. So taking my hand off this one, let's take a look at that heat signature there. Wrapping right around the back end. Again, you got that gap, but you can see it's definitely taking up more of my palm on both sides. And then my fingers right up here, it's just wrapping up through it. So what you're pretty much seeing in the heat signature is it's just flowing with my hand. It's not hitting me in the back of the palm, but everything else is flowing from that hump up here to the mid hump, right over to my fingers. Everything's just flowing on this mouse, and that's what makes it so nice. Again, it is a bigger ergo that really conforms to your hand. Okay, let's go on with the X-Lite, the Pulsar X-Lite V3. This is size 2, by the way, the medium size, which I think would be the comparison to this. And getting this in the hand, this is a lot similar, a lot closer to the HyperSpeed than the original DeathAdder V3 for sure. If you watch my recent comparison talking about the 1-2 punch, how you need 2 mice on your desk, I included these mice with the Viper and the DeathAdder, and I told you the X-Lite V3 is one of my favorite mice. I really like this, and I think how I use this the majority of the time is almost a mix in between a palm and a claw. So when you look at right here, you can still see it's conforming. I got a little bit of gap over there. My fingers are still rolling up to it. Definitely, again, it looks like the heat signature of the bigger DeathAdder, but in the hand, it feels more like the smaller DeathAdder. But this one's smaller, as you saw with those heat signature differences. Again, let me pull this out for you one more time midway, even though we're going to do the rest of them here. And I just want to show you, again, how it's not touching the back of my palm like some of these other medium or large ergos would be. So again, looking at this one, you can see that palm is just open back there. Now coming over to the, what is this one? Again, the EC2CW. Good mercy, I always forget that name. the Zowie, right? EC2 here. So again, getting this in the hand, you can see it's pretty much just like the X-Lite V3 for sure. And it kind of puts you in that relaxed claw, but you can pull this into a palm. I kind of catch myself again doing that mid grip, again, claw and palm. If you take my hand off, you can see you still have that nice flow going from the fingers. Definitely a whole lot more curvature on the other side, but you can see it flowing. It's definitely, again, these two are very similar over here. And just for grins and giggles, I want to show you the Logitech one. Oh, our camera is freezing. Let me get some more of that heat signature transferred over here. So putting this in the hand, again, it puts you in that grip just like I would get with the new HyperSpeed. That's why I wanted to pull this mouse out, because that's how this sits. It's not palm. It kind of pulls you into that relaxed claw where it kind of just swoops around over your fingers, which you'll see here in the heat signature. So you see my fingers, and then it kind of goes up into that hump. Now, of course, with this not being ergo, you're not going to get a whole lot on either side on the tail end, but you can see the midpoint flows up through the fingers, which again, I'm going to pull this out one more time to show you. That's pretty much how, again, you're seeing that like that. If I was to use the Logitech, which is longer, it sits like this. So it does hit me in the back of the palm here a little bit more. This is smaller in ergo, so it kind of flows back here a little bit. Again, just showing you here. You can see you get a little bit on that flare out over there, which locks it in, but it flows through the buttons. Now, if you're curious about the new Razer Viper V3, this definitely feels more like the Logitech, if anything. It's not a G Pro by any means. The thing about the Viper, as much as I love this mouse for extensive periods of time with the combination of the lower hump and then it swooping in on sides, I do get that fatigue over here. And then again, I don't have anything to really rest my hand on, so I'm pretty much always kind of clawing it, maybe a relaxed claw. You can see it flowing right over there. It's pretty much always claw. So one more time to show you the HyperSpeed with the heat signature. If you got small to medium hands, you can pull it in, but medium to large hands, sitting it right here, it is going to always be that claw, relaxed claw type of grip. Now let's go and take a look at the weight of the new DeathAdder V3 HyperSpeed. Slapping on a scale here, we are getting right at 53 grams. And on the bottom, you see you got bigger feet, which we'll talk about later. And you also got dongle storage, but the dongle is out right here, just for clarification. Coming over here to the original DeathAdder V3, we're getting right at 63 grams. So you can see it's significantly lighter. But again, this one's bigger. It's filling out your hand. This one's smaller. So the weight difference you really don't feel, right? Again, smaller and larger, filling out the hand more and more on your fingertips. I've talked about that in many other videos. Now taking a look at the Viper V3. This is the new one, the V3 Pro. We're getting right at 54 grams. So yes, again, the HyperSpeed is the lightest, but it's also the smallest out of these. But the other thing I will mention here as well is this mouse is balanced fantastic. If you look right over here where the buttons crease over, I can grip it right there. No give on the front or the back. I mean, it is balanced like a glove. And that goes right in line with the Glide, since they included these larger feet on the bottom. You all have heard me state it in just about every single one of my videos again, that I love these bigger feet. Over here on the DeathAdder, you can see they gave it this little smiley face, which is like, gosh, I wish the big DeathAdder had these feet. This is that Zowie style. I love it because it's more natural, more pure. You don't feel any drag. It just glides across there. It's such a nice feel with these bigger feet. I love it. Now coming over here to the other DeathAdder, again, this is a bigger mouse, so you're gripping it different in your hand. You do notice it a little bit up front. You can see that dive up at the front when it kind of pulls off to the side there, because you're getting that drag in between feet there. Coming over here to the Viper V3 Pro, I love how they did this here. Wow, a whole bunch of glare with that white. But anyways, got the big feet right there, and it just, again, it just feels so pure and natural. Every mouse should have big feet like this, at least in my book. I absolutely love it. Now looking over here at the pulsar, it's kind of like a mixture. You got the big foot up front and then the smiley on the bottom. I kind of also wish they went with the big one down there, but it feels much better because again, you're kind of gripping on your mouse, you're pressing your buttons up there, so at least you got that big foot up there to get that natural feel whenever you're, again, hitting your 1 or 2 or your scroll wheel, pressing down, it still glides naturally. When over here with a split foot, you feel that slight drag. So I really love how they move the big feet here, and hopefully they do it with the original V3 as well in the future. Now, as far as the coating on a new DeathAdder V3 HyperSpeed here, it is smooth touch all the way around. No grain or anything on the sides, the back, or anything. Very smooth all the way around the entire mouse. It's the exact same coating that you have on the new DeathAdder V3, the original one that came out with the new soft touch here. That is what this is, or the smooth touch. The white one, talking about soft, with the Viper, you kind of got that rubber coating over here. That is not what you have on these two mice. This is, again, like the black Viper V3 that just came out. This white one, I love that kind of rubber coat, especially down here south with the humid climate. You just get that extra grip. I don't know. I personally really like that. And right now, I think they're only coming out with a black version. So hopefully they come out with the white version in the future and you kind of get that rubbery coating type texture. This isn't bad by any means, but again, for me, in a hot, humid climate where you're bound to have some sweaty paws mid-gaming, this rubber texture does come into play, and I really do like that. But as far as this coating, it's the same as the Smooth Touch DeathAdder V3. Now let's go on and take a look at the build of this mouse. And I'm going to pull out the force meter here, so I'm not saying, oh, I'm squeezing it tight here or there. You can actually see how many pounds we're pressing into this mouse to see if we have flex, because you all remember on the original V3, the first few batches that came out all the way up to the Thacker versions, I tested them all, I used them all, I made this mouse, and they all ended up having flex. The new soft or the smooth coating one, there is no flex. I've been debating on doing a long-term review on this. If y'all want to see that, let me know down in the comments. But again, that flex issue is finally fixed here. So anyways, let's see if it is not an issue over here on the HyperSpeed. Pressing over here into the buttons. Wow, that thing's solid. So we can go all the way up to 13 pounds, no flex. Let me do it underside here so you guys can see as well. I don't know if you guys can see if it is flexing, but I can go all the way up to 12, all the way around this. I'm not getting any. Let me get on this back rear hump. None. Let me get back by the buttons to see if we get any actuation. All right, I'm sliding right there. None whatsoever. If we get it up on the top, none there either. Like, holy smokes, this thing is solid. Let's get on the bottom and see. Okay, yeah, I get some flex on the bottom, but I can get it all the way up to 11 pounds. And like I've been stating in all my videos, if you're pressing your mouse 11 pounds on the bottom, you're using it completely wrong. The build on this thing is solid. Now I want to give you a sound test of these switches here, which they are using the Gen 3 opticals in this, the same as the V3 Pro or whatever it's called, and then the Viper. Same switches up here. And what you were looking at there when we were silent was my ambient room decibel, the sound there, so you can see the difference between, again, my room and then the switches. I want to mention a couple things about the button, the placement, the feel, and everything on these. As far as core feel, they feel the exact same as, again, the regular V3 and then the new Viper. They feel the exact same. They're snappy, they're right to the point. But the cool thing about this new one is, if you can see right here, when I press it down, bam, it's almost like right down there. I might have a pinch of give, but that's me picking for sure. Like, bam, I mean, you press it and it is down there. I really like how snappy and right to the point they are. And you can kind of see the difference when I come over here to the DeathAdder V3. I have a little bit more bounce in there. As you can see right down there, you can see that little bit of give. Now, just to be clear, I have used this V3 a whole lot more than a new V3 HyperSpeed, just so, again, maybe it's break-in period, you'll see a difference. But over here on the Viper V3, which I have used quite a bit, you do got a little bit more give there as well. As you can see, I'm clicked down, but I got that little bit of extra bounce. Now, these are incredibly snappy, and I haven't used this as much as the DeathAdder as well, just to be clear right there. But I mean, no joke, these things just feel incredibly snappy. Now, the other thing I love about the buttons that they did right here is they included that gap on your side buttons, just like they did over here on a new Viper. When you look at the original DeathAdder V3, you don't have that gap. It just kind of rolls there. Now they're so stinking big over here that that gap doesn't really matter, right? It's right there. You can clear as day decipher one from the other. But these are slightly reduced, kind of in between the DeathAdder and the Viper sides there. Still plenty big, and they do kind of bulge out a bit. But again, you got that gap. Bam, you can press them right there and you feel that difference. Now, they also did reduce the height of the scroll wheel. And this is something I love. Y'all know I've mentioned this in many videos as well. I love a low scroll wheel so I can be playing and just roll on top of my scroll wheel, right? So I don't got to really lift up my finger. I'm just playing, bam, and I roll up onto it. Over here on the original DeathAdder V3, it's kind of like a speed bump, bam. So I always have to lift my finger up. Over here on the Viper, again, it's kind of known for having that lower scroll wheel, and you just roll up on top of that as well. This is something I look for in my mice, and I absolutely love that lower recessed scroll wheel. Okay, so now let's talk about actually using a mouse, gaming with the mouse. And I want to kick it off with the battery life of this mouse. You can get up to 100 hours of battery life using the included dongle, which I'm not sure if I showed you yet, the dongle storage down there. Bam, it just sits right in there. It's really nice, locked into place. Whoopsie daisy. You get your little adapter and you get a rubber cable, right? It's not a braided cable, but who really cares? You're not going to be using your wireless mouse with a wire, so who cares about that? Anyways, back to battery life. At 1,000 hertz included dongle, you're going to get up to 100 hours. If you go down to 8,000 hertz or up to 8,000 hertz, you get up to 20 hours. Then in between 4,000 hertz, they're saying 31 hours. 2,000 hertz, they're saying 41 hours. So as far as 8,000 polling rate with the dongle here, if you already have one, it will work. You just go in there and pair it. Bam, and you're going to use it. And I used it in both the 1,000 and the 8,000. Instantly going to 8,000, the battery life in Synapse drops right away. But again, just charge your stuff, you're perfectly fine. I think the biggest key difference here is, do you notice a difference between the 1,000 and 8,000? And I honestly don't think we need to get into that polling rate debate here. I honestly think the majority of it is a mind game and marketing thing. I keep all of my mice at 4,000 polling rate, and I feel like that's that sweet spot right there. Again, you got to have a lot in play. Number one, high skill level. Number two, your monitor, your PC specs, and everything's got to be running in there. Why I don't run 8K is not because I'm not a great gamer. I'm just an average gamer, by the way. But anyways, when I run at 8K, my system starts getting hiccups, and I'll notice a slight delay here, there. So it's not worth that sacrifice for me. I'll keep my stuff at 4K and run perfectly smooth. But again, me going from 4K and then testing it at 1K with the included dongle, I mean, the differences are, I can't sit here and tell you, hey, I noticed a difference. I can't. I'm playing Destiny and XDefiant. I'm not a very good FPS player anymore. It hurts to say that, but I just don't grind FPS games much anymore. Sitting there grinding for levels is just not, again, something I strive for or find enjoyment anymore. Again, Destiny is really my primary game, but talking about gameplay with both of those, I really didn't know a difference from 1,000 to 4,000. But the one thing I did really notice a difference, talking about the new HyperSpeed being a smaller DeathAdder coming over here to the V3, which I absolutely love when I play Destiny. But if I came over here and tried to use the original DeathAdder V3 playing XDefiant, I'm horrible. I'm incredibly slow. I can't flick. I can't dip. I can't just swing around and get targets. I'm bad. I'm already bad, but when I use a bigger ergo, even worse. Hence, in my recent video, why I stated I use the X3 or the X-Lite V3 over here, because I can dance around with this a little bit more. I have a little bit more leeway than, again, the DeathAdder V3. And that's exactly what I had over here with the HyperSpeed. When I came over and started playing XDefiant with this, I was able to flick and dip it and really dance around and play a lot faster. But if I need to pull it in, since I got that flare on the outside there, I can pull it in right there and actually lock in a shot. Still a little bit too small for me. I know we're talking about performance here, but again, using it is what I want to focus on here. Is yes, this mouse is still a little too small for me, but when I came over here to like the Pulsar, I can still rest it into my hand a little bit more. But this one's too big. The original DeathAdder, I would recommend this more for like a story game or say Destiny, where you are playing a little bit slower, playing fast-paced FPS, and you want that slight ergo type of feel. That's where this really came into play. Now let me show you Razer Synapse here. It's a little bit different than you've seen before in other mice. So we're going to select our V3 HyperSpeed here. This is all your basic standard stuff: battery life, your pairing, your profile, your customize your buttons. We all know what that is. Coming over here, performance, you have DPI stages if you want, which adjust by the button on the bottom of the mouse. I always leave mine at 800 and leave it right there. As far as increments, it's at increments of 100 here. Let me get back to 800. Polling rate, stock dongle up to 1,000, but you can use the 8K dongle and go all the way up to 8,000, which I used it quite a bit on 4,000. But again, this is stock dongle we're looking at. Calibration, as far as smart tracking in your surface, 1mm, 2mm. Over here is your power saving. So if you want it to shut down, I keep mine at 10 minutes when I'm not using it. Over here, low power mode, I leave this off because even if I'm down to like 10% battery, I still want the same performance that I would always have. This is where things start to get a little bit juicy, is when you come over here to advanced. You got dynamic sensitivity. So let's go and turn this on. we'll come over here to classic. So this is pretty much your standard movement, right? I'm moving my mouse right down there. If I go faster, it's going to go up further based on, again, my motion of my flicking of the mouse. Come over here to natural, you can see it's almost instantly right up there. So it goes up and then it kind of flattens out. So you can flick it, bam, and it's going to flatten out there. Come over here to jump, you can see you're kind of going along. And then if I flick it further, it's going to go faster at that end right there. And then you come down here to custom and create your own curve if you want. If you want to just kind of be right up there instantly, you can create that or a little bit lower. Me personally, I don't use this. I don't play many FPS games, and when I do, I still like that natural balanced feel across every mouse, as I'm not using the same mouse all the time. So I don't want one mouse to feel drastically different because of a feature than the other. But again, as you can see, me just moving it right here, you can see how quick that jumps up there. Over here in the classic, just moving regular, you can see it's down there. And then the jump, you really got to flick it, and then it starts going faster up there. As you can see it going right off of the screen here. So I think this is really going to be beneficial for like Fortnite players or fast-paced FPS players that need to snap around for an enemy and stuff like that. Again, not something I would use. Now, diving a little bit deeper into that dynamic sensitivity, I want to show you the actual reviewer's guide that we got from Razer here. And this might be able to explain it a little bit better than I did, right? Because again, it's not a feature I would truly use. So I'm going to leave this up right here and you can see all of that. And you can see exactly what it is telling you here. Scrolling down to the next page and you can see it right here as you see what it is actually adjusting and what each one does. Now, there's another cool feature in this mouse that is not released yet, but it is coming, and it's if you're holding your mouse at an angle. This is still dynamic sensitivity, but again, I can't even see anything on it, but Razer did tell me it will be released today. I'm still not seeing it yet, but anyways, as if you hold your mouse at an angle, you can implement that into there, and then it'll still feel like it is straight. So if you hold your mouse to a little bit to the left, you can adjust it, and it'll still be like it is straight. So that's a pretty cool feature if you kind of hold your mouse a little bit to the right or to the left to still have it kind of pinpointed there. But as far as dynamic sensitivity, I wanted to show you this, so maybe they can explain it a little bit better for you. Now, one of the best parts about the new Razer DeathAdder V3 HyperSpeed is the cost. It's only going to come in at $100, and it's kind of weird saying only 100, as 100 used to be expensive for a mouse back in the days, but now, heck, every mouse is 150 plus. So seeing a mouse it's just weird. Again, it's cheaper than what we see a lot of the mice coming out for these days. But you are getting a few downgrades compared to the original V3. Number one, the sensor is a little bit lower, but you don't notice a difference whatsoever. And then, of course, over here on the V3, you get 8,000 polling rate, which this mouse actually comes in at $160. So you're saving $60. I believe the dongle, the 8K dongle through Razer, if I'm not mistaken, is $30. So if you're going to buy this on the side, you're still saving money. It's a little bit cheaper, and I like seeing that. I would like to see this at $100. Downgrade the sensor if you need be and put it at $100. I feel like $100 for what you're getting here is pretty darn solid. And I really hope this video was able to help you out, right? Because I think a lot of people are going to think, oh, hey, it's just another DeathAdder Mini. It's not a DeathAdder Mini. It is an in-between of the DeathAdder V3 and then the Pulsar X-Lite V3, or EC2 if you want to put it that way. It sits right in between right there, and I think it's going to suit a lot of people that have been wanting to try an ergo but not have this bulbous big old mouse in the hand. I mean, this is exactly what I stated in my video whenever Razer released the V3 DeathAdder. They need to make a smaller one, not a mini, but a smaller one. And this is what they did. You make the mini version and it's going to suit a lot of people. So Razer, jump on that. Make this in a mini version ASAP, because I think a lot of people will truly, truly love this. But I believe I said I need 3% for each unit sold for that idea. I'll be waiting for my check.